All right, welcome in. It is episode 53, the Grant Caster edition of the Three
Woohoo!
Guys Talking Ball podcast. It is December 1, 2022 on a Thursday. Be recapping a whole lot of things that went on this weekend. It was Thanksgiving. Grant is back. Ethan is feeling a little bit under the weather, so hopefully he'll feel better and come back next week with us. We're going to recap Grant's Tulsa trip. We're going to go talk about his football team. He screwed up. He let Brian Ferentz out of his closet.
Mm-hmm.
The Axe is back home in Minneapolis. Michigan had a somewhat of a big win, some would say. NDSU is going to be playing the Grizzlies on Saturday. The Cowboys got a Thanksgiving win. The Vikings got a Thanksgiving win. The Chiefs, they did their thing and they got a win. And then we're going to preview some conference championship games in the NFL and then preview the upcoming week in the NFL. So, Grant, how we doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was fantastic.
Okay. Where
Food,
did you didn't have to work on Thanksgiving at all or
didn't have to work. Nope,
no?
had the day
Okay.
off. So food, family, and relaxation.
Do you go back to Mankato then, I'm guessing?
Yep, I went down Wednesday night.
Okay.
Uh,
Did you
kind of.
did you partake in Black Wednesday?
I did not partake in Black Wednesday.
No?
Um, no, just wasn't my thing because it was a quick trip, knowing that I had to come back up Thursday because I had to work Friday. So I did not partake in as you call it, Black Wednesday or high school reunion Wednesday. That's what I like to call it. I was did not partake in that, but no, like you said, Thanksgiving was good. Food, family, relaxation. Can you get much better than that? I don't think so.
Yeah. Football as well. Some
Mm-hmm.
good games we got to see. So did you what was I'm guessing did your mom cook the turkey or
So actually,
what was on your plate at the Caster
so
Thanksgiving Grant?
so there was a bunch of us casters there. We were at my mom's family, at where she grew up, just outside of Janesville there, about 20 minutes from Mankato. And it was your traditional Thanksgiving spread. Turkey. There was a ham also, so that was
Okay.
nice. A little extra protein there. Mashed potatoes that had a little bit of everything: butter, sour cream, top the tater. I think some cream cheese was melted in there. I had about 4 plates of those. It was fantastic. You got your stuffing with I think some cranberries and like some walnut pieces in there too. It was a good change of pace.
Interesting.
It was delicious. And then I felt like I was back in the South again. There was coleslaw as one of the sides, some lemon bars, and then my sister Olivia made two awesome pies. For being a girl from Minnesota, she makes a damn good pecan pie.
Ooh, okay.
So you have that with a little vanilla ice cream on the top, and I'm getting hungry right now just thinking
Yeah.
about that. I kind of wish she would have made me a pie so I could have taken it home with me. Um, so your traditional kind of Thanksgiving foods, but it was fantastic, and it didn't look there was a whole lot of leftovers, so we did our job.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the same. We went out to Mott to my aunt and uncle's cousin's place and similar to you, turkey. We had ham as well. This my grandma makes a phenomenal ham glaze that you put over. I don't know if you were able to listen to the podcast with Mike last week where we discussed what was on our Thanksgiving plates. But yeah, had that turkey thing, ham stuffing. I made mac and cheese. I made and it wasn't the Kraft, the Velveeta, or the boxed mac and cheese. It was from scratch. I get kind of scratch. I shouldn't say from scratch, but the cheese sauce I made, whole milk, shredded cheese, butter, and then I put in some hot sauce, some cayenne pepper, chili powder, cumin,
Oh, there you go.
paprika. Give it a little bit of a kick, and then topped it off with pour breadcrumbs over the top of it, put it in the oven for about 15 minutes, give it that extra crunch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told it was I had some good rave reviews from it. I don't know if they were just saying that because they didn't want to hurt my feelings,
And there's
but
a day to be thankful. Thanks, Dylan, for bringing a
yep,
dish.
exactly. And then what else did we have? we had so much food. I took a fat nap after I was done, and then my cousin Logan, shout out Logan, he just killed a deer from out in got a Montana tag, so killed that, and then his wife made because we have to make sure this is correct, and Logan doesn't get more than the credit he deserves because he did kill the deer. We'll give him that,
He
but
didn't
his
pick up
wife,
off the side of the road and say, "Hey, look what I bagged this year, honey."
nope, nope, nope.
Okay.
His wife made bacon wrapped backstrap, and it was the perfect medium rare. It
Ooh.
was it was so good. So shout out to Carly for making that, and then finished it off with some pecan pie, pumpkin bars as well, and then took meatballs. Meatballs. That's always one of our
Oh.
yes. And last year we had because Logan's wife killed a moose from a couple of years ago or last year as well. So instead of like regular like ground hamburger, they ground up moose and it was moose balls, which was incredible. And then got some leftovers.
You see, that's interesting to me because I feel like meatballs and such, that's more Christmassy or New Year's. Maybe I'm just full of shit here and I don't know what I'm talking about, but that caught me for a little curve there, a little early edition of the curveball of the week, but I'm a fan.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was awesome. I probably shouldn't have eaten for the next 3 to 4 days, but being the fat guy I am, I partook because well, you know what I'm in training, so gotta nutrition up and eat. So
It's getting cold outside.
yep,
It's
and
getting
yeah, gotta have a
it,
little bit of some
you
extra
gotta have
stuffing, if you will.
you gotta have a base layer. I mean, look at my sister Miranda. Nothing against her, but she has the world's highest metabolism. She's always cold. Why is
Huh?
that? Because she's got a high metabolism. She can't build that good base. It's what we need here.
Exactly, and
It's what we need.
it's the couple of times a year that you get to be with your family and you can eat whatever you want. Nobody can judge you for it because they're
It's
all doing the same thing.
the same damn thing.
So that was our Thanksgiving wrap up, and you were down in the Paris of the Southwest, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and
Mhm.
you were I guess you were kind of all over the map down there. You were at the cross country championships in Stillwater, then you went over to Norman, watched
Yeah.
the Bedlam game, and then you also were in Tulsa. So, how was how was Oklahoma? I should say, as just a broad spectrum. We can see if you're watching on the YouTube channel, go subscribe. You can see the OU hat in the background. Yep, there it is.
Right there, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Dylan, Oklahoma was really good. Um, that weekend it was cold in Minneapolis. It was what 3 degrees outside. Well, during the day down there, we had 35 and sunny with no breeze, no wind. It was perfect. You just need a sweatshirt, maybe a light vest on over that, but no major coat, no hats, no gloves, because that's just the perfect weather. And like you said, for the NCAA cross country championship, 35 and sunny is perfect running weather. Um, but the one thing I did notice, you're speaking of your cousin Logan for tagging that deer in Montana this year. As we were driving through the state of Missouri, I noticed this: deer season did not go well for the people in Missouri because there was a lot of roadkill, a lot of dead
Ah,
animals, and
some nice
then
ones too. I'm guessing.
there were some good ones there. Yeah, some couple fresh ones that you could tell just got hit by a semi, and they were not expecting that. and and so I don't. Either the people in Missouri don't have good aim, or there was just a bunch of deer out there that they couldn't take them out this year. But the state of Missouri did not have a good deer season.
Wow,
I will say that
wow,
for whatever that's worth.
that's unfortunate for the people of Missouri.
Mm.
I did give you an assignment to that we need a full recap preview. I shouldn't say preview. Review. Review. That's the right word I'm looking for. It's still Monday
Yeah.
when we record this, so brain's still recovering a little bit. Not all back to 100% recovered from the long weekend. Uh, but what? Let's hear this. The review of Gaylord Memorial Stadium.
Man, I tell you what, it is a beautiful stadium. It's a big stadium, and that's how college football should be. And the cool part about that is there's no parking lots around there. You don't have a 10-mile walk to get to the stadium. You look and let's say you're on campus and you have a chemistry class. Well, you walk 2 blocks north, and guess what? 85,000 foot football stadium. It's right in the heart of the middle of campus. But I tell you, it sticks out like a sore thumb because it's a tall stadium, and on both end zones it says, welcome to the University of Oklahoma. You're 7-time national champions. They really like to let the people know about that. Uh, the other side, they have a big clock that says "Welcome to Gaylord Memorial Stadium" on the outside. So it was cool. And you're right there. And one interesting part about that is when we were down there, we actually parked about maybe 3/4 of a mile away from the stadium, in like an elementary school. So, like I said, it's just you're right in the heart of Norman. And I think that's why the people of Oklahoma, love their Sooners, because the school, you feel like you're part of the state. They're not like Duke, where these people they think they're better than everyone else and they don't fit the Raleigh Durham area. People from Norman and Oklahoma City, they love that school because that school is them. And it was really cool. We walked in on the south end of the stadium, and there was a big turf area with 4 statues, 2 to my left and 2 to my right. And there were 4 statues, Dylan, of all the coaches who have won a national title at the University of Oklahoma. And the 2 that we would remember the most were Barry Switzer and Bob Stoops.
Yep.
And the cool part about that is on the side of each of these statues, it said their record at the school. It gave them a nice long biography, record at the school, how many All-Americans they've coached, their winning percentages, if they coached any Heisman Trophy winners, what the state of Oklahoma means to them and what they've meant to this program. So, if you're royalty down there, they take care of you. And then also it was the same end zone where the recruits came in to visit. And as we got there nice and early because we wanted to take it all in. And, that looked like they were going to the trenches that night for their recruiting visit, because I saw a couple offensive linemen and a couple defensive linemen and linebackers for OU that night at Bedlam. And then also what was cool is on the other outside part of the stadium, as you're just kind of walking down the sidewalk around, you see there's a bronze statue of all 7 Heisman Trophy winners. The year they won the Heisman, their stats, that final year their record was at the school. And, it's cool. It was because the ones we recently would see a lot of were, Jason White, Sam Bradford, and then Baker Mayfield.
Kyler.
And Kyler's wasn't built yet.
Okay.
So catch these statues, Dylan. They're probably 7-8 feet tall, so they're a lot of work. And actually, the Baker one was just done this past April.
Oh, okay.
But they do have a spot in that same grass area reserved for Kyler's. That's going to go right next to Baker's. They're going to take a little time to build that.
Ah, gotcha. Because do they have somebody build that at a different location and then they transport it in, or is it built in that spot from the ground up?
It's built somewhere else and they transport.
Okay.
Because it's also, on a cement slab that's probably about 3 feet tall. So they put the slab on the ground and they put the statue for the player on top of that. And it was really cool. The one with Baker, they got it right because they had his headband on there.
Ah, okay, nice.
And if you remember when they played in Bedlam in 2015 against Oklahoma State, it was a little cold down there in Stillwater. They had his pocket warmer on his vest too.
Okay.
The patent, where Baker to keep his hands warm there.
Yep.
And again, they're proud of their history, because when you walk into the stadium on the side of where the press box is, well, you have one on the left. Where I was looking at it, we were on the Oklahoma State side, so when I was looking at it on my left, you had the big OU logo and then the Jordan logo on the right hand side. They're proud of that, but then also again they let 7-time national champions. 7 Heisman Trophy winners, and then they have their, however many All-Americans and conference championships and everything like that. But so to get to our seats, you came into the stadium, and it was pretty neat. We were like section 228, and it's a very steep stadium. So instead of having an elevator or stairs, they almost had they had a ramp that you would walk up. Just a slight incline, back and forth, kind of like a stairwell. Well, this stadium was so steep, Dylan, I kid you not, we probably had 16 different ramps we had to walk up to get to our seats. And they were probably, each of those ramps were probably 100 foot long.
Oh man. Whew.
Oh,
You got your steps in.
I calculated it. I think it took me over 1,000 steps to get from the bottom of that stadium to the top.
Oh man.
Like, this is just ridiculous. Because after 3 or 4 levels, I was like, this is kind of taking a while. We're not that high off the ground. And I pulled my phone out, and let's say for an easy number, I was like 19,300 steps for the day. Well, we get to the top, and it's like your final steps for the day at this point are 20,200, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And your feet are starting to hurt a little bit, and now you're thinking, when is this going to end? Like, I didn't sign up to get all this exercise in today. But then it was cool because you got up to the top there, and they had plenty of restrooms, and they had 4 or 5 different spots to get food, so you didn't have to fight with the congregation. And another part that I really liked for our seats, normally it says, hey, you're section 228, come here. If you're 229, come here, and you don't know which side to go on. It's like, oh, am I gonna have to walk across 30 people or not? Well, the way they have it set up at Memorial Stadium, it says if you're at section 228, seats 1 through 7 or 1 through 8, go by these stairs. So then you're not walking across 50 rows of people if you have to go to the restroom all the time. Okay. So that was kind of cool. So then you didn't have to think about it like, well, what the heck's going on here? What are we doing? And then you get to our seat, and then what took me away was how big their jumbotron was. To my left, I mean, it had to have been 150 feet wide, 200 feet wide. I mean, this thing was huge. They had, on the far left-hand side, they had the team, both scoreboards, and then in the middle was just a huge screen where they were showing, actual video of the game. And then another cool part was we got there early enough before warm-ups, they were showing other games throughout the country.
Oh, so that's sweet.
Yeah, so you could watch, Ohio State was playing Maryland. Iowa was playing Minnesota. I can't remember. Clemson was playing Miami. So they were just kind of showing other games throughout the country before the OU and OSU players came onto the field for their warm-ups. And that was kind of cool because, people, they know, hey, people want to get here 90 minutes before kickoff to beat the 85,000 people who are going to be in here. Let's give them a little entertainment to watch.
Yeah. What was kind of the atmosphere as far as like during the game? Were Oklahoma and Oklahoma State fans, were they cordial with each other, or could you tense or feel some like tension between the two schools, or were they because the atmosphere, the game felt like it was over fairly quickly because Oklahoma jumped out to a 28-point lead.
Yep.
And then after that, there wasn't much, but like the lead up, the build, could you see some tension? Did you see any fights in the stands?
Nope, no fights in the stands. I think, because by the time kickoff started, around 6:40, it was completely dark, and it was cold. And where we were sitting, we were kind of on the second level of the stadium. So there wasn't anything blocking us from the wind if the wind was coming in from the north. So, and I think, for us, 26 degrees is not bad. We're from Minnesota. People down there, they're not used to that. It was a little cold. And also, I should mention, that was really cool. In our seats, where we looked off to our right, we could see the rest of the university, and then also the city lights and the skyline from Oklahoma City. Because Norman is just south of Oklahoma City. And kind of, how Kinnick, they have the water tower with the Tiger Hawk logo on there?
Yep.
OU has that too, on a water tower, just one of the end zones. So when you're on
Okay.
the field, you look up and you can see the water tower with the OU logo on there. And then we could see the rest of the campus. And like I said, those lights in the skylines from Oklahoma City. So that was really cool. But before the game, no, not a whole lot of tension. Um, not many people yelling at each other. There was a couple OSU fans who tried to say this was the Cowboy State, it's a Cowboy State, but members of the OU band came back and said something like, "Hey, 94-13, because OU has
I
dominated this
I
rivalry so
saw
much."
that. I was shocked
Yeah,
by it. I figured
uh,
Oklahoma had a sizable advantage. I did
yeah,
not realize that Oklahoma State's only won 13 times in this game.
13 times in this
That's
game,
that's crazy.
and so that was about as far as much as close to any bad blood there was, but it wasn't fights in the stands. If you're going to see anything like in the Southeastern Conference, so the fans they respected each other for a little bit, for the most part, in that game, and then but it was really cool on the entrance. Kind of like these big schools. Whenever OU scored a touchdown, they had those big the lights
Yep.
flickered in the stadium, and that was really cool to see. And that they got a good light show for their entrance. And then, dude, seeing that the Sooner Schooner in
Did it
person,
tip?
it did not tip, because actually they widened the wheelbase after the
Oh,
last time it tipped, because before all four wheels used to be parallel, but they shift the two back wheels a little bit more, where that so that didn't tip. But they got the ponies out there and their Wreckham crew, as they call it. And after they got out to that 28-0 lead, those ponies were a little tired.
well, they
I
didn't
don't
have to use it the rest of the game,
They
so
didn't have to use it the rest of the game. No, and I don't think they were used to using it as much this year
no.
uh, compared to years past. And then after every kickoff, the Wreckham crew, they fire off their pistols in the air. So you get that blank gunfire. Just all in all, just a really cool stadium. And it's what college football is supposed to be like. And OU, they were having a bad year at that time. They were 5-5. There were still 84,000 people there strong.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not an
that's
em-
a
not
loyal
not an
loyal
empty,
fan base.
loyal fan base, not an empty seat in the house. And you know what I was most impressed is you didn't hear any negativity from the stands.
Okay.
Oh, Dylan Gabriel sucks. Venables doesn't know what he's doing. This coaching staff sucks. We need a new head coach. Nothing like that. It was funny though, because also during one of the TV timeouts, they actually showed highlights from across the country on live games that were going on. They showed a highlight from Texas Tech, Iowa State. They showed Tennessee getting mollywopped by South Carolina, but then they go, and we're going to go to Los Angeles where UCLA is playing USC. Boo! Boo! Yeah, they do not like Lincoln Riley, and
I
they do not like USC. They're in Norman because they
huh.
feel like he left them high and dry.
A little bit scars a little still fresh there, I suppose. But
Oh yeah, and because it was after Bedlam last year. The day
yep.
after, when he just kind of said, "Oh hey, by the way, I'm going to USC. See you guys."
Well, and I think he planned on staying until they lost, and then he said, "I'm bolting."
Well, yeah, I mean, because people always thought he was going to LSU,
Yep.
and then I think they lost, and USC came and said, "Hey, you can live in Southern California and make $120 million over 10 years, and you can really be a big fish in a small pond in this conference compared to going to the Southeastern Conference." And he said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
And you got to think also, knowing that we're in the world we live in, with college athletics being the transfer portal, where he knew, I could get Caleb Williams, and I could get all these other guys that want to come play for me, where this rebuild won't have to seem as bad because I could just get better players than everyone else.
Yeah. Well, and it's working out. We'll preview that game a little bit later on, but we'll get back to week 13 in college football. We'll start with the Friday game. Nebraska ended
Oof.
a 8-game losing skid. This is all Grant's fault because he goes on vacation and he lets Brian Ferentz get out of the closet, and Brian Ferentz was calling the game, and it looked like it because there was up until this point, Iowa was rolling. They were playing good. The path back to Indy was very clear for them. All they had to do was beat a lowly 3-8 Nebraska team who didn't have a head coach, who they were not playing. I think they lost losers of 5 or 6 straight, and they get down 24-0. To their credit, they battled back. Petrus was hurt. Matt Laporta was I can't remember his first name, did not play. They definitely missed him. It was crazy to think that they missed Spencer Petrus. Who knows? Maybe that game is a little bit different. But overall, they made Nebraska look like they were like in the Frank Solich era, not Tom Osborne. I don't want to say that too yet, but the defense looked competent. Iowa had no idea. It looked like they've never communicated on the offensive line before, and Alex Padilla was running for his life. They actually and receivers were hit or miss. Padilla, and when he had receivers open, he couldn't hit anybody. Just a very ugly game, and if just maybe this might get Brian Ferentz out of a job, and we'll see, because this West in the last 72 hours has gotten a lot better with the hirings of Matt Rule to Nebraska and Luke Fickell going to Wisconsin. The Big Ten West they're in a much better coaching position, and Iowa seems to be still stuck in the early 2000s right now. So this is a little bit of a crossroads. We're gonna have to see what Kirk does. I don't know how you can confidently say, if you're Kirk Ferentz, that we still have our 2023 quarterback on this roster, because they have to go the transfer portal route or do something, because whatever they have right now is not it. They don't have receivers who can get open. Their offensive line is abysmal, which has been a staple of the Iowa and Kirk Ferentz program for however many years he's been coaching. But this is definitely a bitter end to a very up and down year for the Hawkeyes.
I mean, disappointing is where you start, and I don't even think that's the right word to say, because it's worse than disappointing. Dylan, because last year you're coming off a 10-2 regular season. You win the Big Ten West. Sure, you get mollywomped by Michigan in your bowl game. You lose in the Big Ten title game. Excuse me. You lose a tough game to Kentucky in your bowl game, but still, you're 10-4. You have a lot of players who come back, a lot of experienced players, and you're thinking they should be able to put this together. And it's just a roller coaster of a year, and we'll all go back to that first Saturday in September, 7-3 South Dakota State, when your defense outscores your offense 4-3. It was just, that was the writing on the wall right there for this tough year. But back to Friday, and I texted you this, and for some reason, 3 years in a row, Iowa has now come out sluggish and slow against Nebraska. 2020, in the COVID year, they were able to get that pass rush going and get Tyler Goodson going, and they came back and they got a win to finish that year. I don't know if it was 5-2, 6-2. It was that weird COVID year. I don't remember records, but they were on the verge of actually playing Michigan in that extra game they were going to give teams, because both teams finished second in their division respectively.
Michigan did not finish second in their division.
Or so or they just thought Iowa and Michigan they should play, but I
don't know.
It was something.
I try to forget that year.
And then they were going to play Missouri in their bowl game, and then for some reason Missouri said, "Yeah, we're going to play our bowl game," and then they send their players home over Christmas, and the players get talking to grandma over Christmas and their siblings, and guess what? They get sick and they cancel the season. So you're bummed out there. And then, like I said, last year to go 10-2, and then, last year against Nebraska, you're down 21-6 going into the fourth quarter. You block a punt. Nebraska turns it over again. You're able to win, this game for the seventh year in a row, and you're feeling better about yourself because you got the dub. But this year they just came out flat. They looked like the 3-8 team, and Nebraska looked like they had to win an in situation to get to Indianapolis and play in the Big Ten title game. I don't know what this team did this whole week for practice. It doesn't look like they practiced. Maybe they probably had way too much turkey, not only Thursday but Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday, and they couldn't move. They couldn't move at all, and you know it's and then to lose a game, like that, to lose two of your main four rivalry games in your place, going back to Iowa State in week two, it's just it's an awful year. It's a bad year, and they weren't ready to play, and they didn't deserve a shot to get added division title trophy to their trophy case at home, but in Iowa City. But I do gotta say this. I gotta give some credit, not to the Nebraska fans, but the Nebraska players. Because you look at the end of that game when the clocks hit 0:00, they were able to run across that sideline, get that trophy, and they were able to celebrate with their fans. That good for the players, because they hadn't beaten Iowa in 7 years. This group of seniors has lost to Iowa every single time. If they were recruited in the fall of 17, winter of 18, they've gone through three coaches, turmoil left and right, worst coach, best coach in America in Scott Frost, to the most abysmal situation to be in. They never were able to play in a bowl game at such a rich tradition of school like Nebraska. To see them celebrate with that trophy and to do it with their fans, good for them and good for those players. And this will be probably a lot of the last time these kids play a down of football in their life, and they were able to go out on a high note. So, you're happy for the Nebraska players because they earned it and they needed something to go right for them, because
Well,
nothing
and
happened last
especially
4
the way this game played out, where they were up. It was similar to
Mhm.
last year, where they were up big by 3 scores, and then all of a sudden, Iowa starts making a comeback. It was like, and they talked about it. The sideline reporter talked about it, where it kind of felt like it was like the on that,
Oh my God,
where
it's
it was like,
happening.
oh, it's happening again. Here we go again. We're gonna find a way to blow this. They had a
Yep.
couple of interceptions bounce out in and out of their hands, but then they were finally able to seal the deal with 50 seconds left. There was that turnover where they were able to hold them to a field goal. It was just a just yeah, you have to, especially for what they, like you said, what they've went through, and just
Mhm.
all the three coaching changes, and you got to be happy for a guy like Mickey Joseph, who is a former Husker, and
Yep.
hopefully Matt Rule is able to keep him on staff, because I think you need some type of alumni base there that was there when things were good, and get those kids back to understanding what it took to maintain that level of dominance that they had in the 90s.
And then also, a big part also in today's world of college football we live in, if you keep Mickey Joseph on staff, these young men, they're not going to want to transfer because they know someone's there, someone who fought for them, someone who went to hell and back with him this year, excuse me, as their interim coach, knows what it takes to win at Nebraska. And they can say, hey, Mickey Joseph, he has my back. So
Yeah.
you hope Matt Rule can keep him on as what, the wide receivers coach, assistant head coach, something along those lines. But yeah, Dylan, you're right. To recap Iowa's year, they haven't really ever done much in the transfer portal. I mean, they've gotten a couple defensive linemen from once they got a guy from Northern Illinois and another smaller level, or Charlie Jones came in from Buffalo, but he had to be a walk on. Well, now's the time where you got to try to go after not only one person, but two or three people, because this program is headed in the wrong direction. And if you can't get a competent quarterback, and if you can't bring some excitement into this offensive system, these players, they're not going to want to come here. And soon you're going to have players who should be playing wide receiver at Northern Iowa who are now going to be playing at the Big Ten level because they're thinking this, well, shoot, I can play college football in the Big Ten. When really actually Big Ten caliber players don't want to come to your university. And there's an Iowa receiver on the roster this year that worries me that he's going to hit the transfer portal. And Keenan Johnson, number 6, he was a true freshman in 2021. He had a good true freshman year. He was probably the best. He was the best receiver coming back for this year's team. A lot of potential. He missed the South Dakota State game and the Iowa State game with an ankle injury, I believe. Tried to come back against Nevada, but you never heard from him for the rest of the year. You never heard from him. Never heard from him. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And then it dawned on me about a week and a half ago. I'm thinking, you know what? He's probably telling the coaches and medical staff, this ankle's bugging me. I can't go. I can't go. Because now, since he didn't play in those 4 games, guess what? He doesn't lose a year of eligibility, and he could transfer somewhere else and still have, 4 years to play. So things like that can happen, with this Iowa team. And you're right, they have 4 underclassmen in the offensive line, which it's Iowa. That shouldn't be an issue, but they didn't look like they practiced and they knew how to communicate at all this year. So your offensive line coach, which surprisingly was not Brian Ferentz, should be fired. Brian Ferentz should stop coaching your quarterbacks, and Brian Ferentz should be off the roster. And then Kirky boy, he needs to be sat down by the athletic director and say, hey, if you don't make these subtle changes, you're gone. And we're not going to fire you, but we're going to mutually agree to part ways in the coming years. Because if they keep playing like this, the athletic program is going to lose money because no one's going to want to support them. No one's going to want to go. And the AD is going to lose his job. So it's going to be an interesting offseason, an interesting 18 to 24 months there in Iowa City for this football program.
Yeah, indeed, it will. We'll monitor that, and we did mention some coaching changes, but next week we're gonna have Nate Rohr on, our good friend, PA announcer for Memorial Stadium at Nebraska. He's gonna come on, discuss the Matt Rule hiring, and then some other coaching changes that have happened in college football. Who knows? There'll probably be some more movement there, but we're gonna go. We won't discuss Minnesota, Wisconsin. We didn't get to really watch much of that game. The Axe is back in Minnesota, so happy for the Gophers and PJ Fleck after losing to Iowa again. But and now Wisconsin has a new coach in Luke Fickell. We'll see what happens there. I doubt they maintain Jim Leonard as the D coordinator. I think there's a lot of buzz about him possibly going to the NFL, so we'll see what happens there. But
I was going to say on that note, just real quick, Dylan.
Yep.
If not Wisconsin, he's probably done in college football coaching.
Probably.
Yeah, and I would think if I'm Luke Fickell, I know you're a defensive guy, but Leonard, this Wisconsin defense has been good since Dave Aranda was there. Jim Leonard ran the same one, so man, I'm doing everything in my power to keep that guy. But Jim also might get to the point where he said, I thought this job should have been mine, and I don't want it. So maybe he's just going to say, I'm going to the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's something like we said, we'll keep an eye on. But we'll go over because the joys. I have not felt this way in quite some time. Michigan 45, Ohio State a puny little 23. And boy, does that feel great to say. In a game which did not start out great, Ohio State, to start the game off, goes right down the field, scores, and then Michigan gets points on their first drive. They were kind of the story, and for a good first probably 15, first quarter and a half, where they'd have a good drive going, then they'd fall behind the sticks, and they couldn't keep up. And then they got points on that first drive. To the defense's credit, they made plays. They got stops when they had to, and then Ohio State, after Michigan's first drive, goes down. It's Michigan, they're to the defense's credit, they hold them to 3, so it's 10-3. And after exchanging a couple of punts, and then on a 3rd and 9, where it really felt like the game was kind of teetering in Ohio State's favor, and it felt a little bit of Oh boy, here we go again. As a Michigan fan, that we've seen this song and dance before. That it's just gonna be a long day if you're a Michigan fan. JJ McCarthy with three Ohio State defenders in his face gets Cornelius Johnson on a hitch route, house call, 69 yards, nice,
Giggity.
and then Ohio State goes down, kicks another field goal, which something that I said in the preview is they got to find ways to force Ohio State to kick field goals in the red zone. They did. And then the next play or next drive, Michigan hits Cornelius Johnson again on a beautiful double move. I think that Ohio State defensive back is still laying on the field from the ankle breaker that Cornelius put on him. And Michigan's up 17-13. Ohio
Well,
State goes down and scores 2017. And then that's halftime. And out of the gate, Michigan got the ball out of the gate. Uh, and back to it is to start the game. Blake Corum, who there, I think a lot of people thought he was going to try to give it a go, gets hurt on his first touch of the game. Didn't play the rest of the game. Donovan Edwards had a club on his hand. Sounds like he had a broken thumb, and he was, depending on what was going to happen, is he was going to get surgery. I don't think he's getting surgery anymore.
no,
And
not
he
in.
played well. And to Ohio State's credit, they did a pretty good job of stopping the run early on, where Michigan was very limited. It was 2-3 yards a carry. And to Michigan's credit, though, they didn't abandon it. Where in previous years they would have been like, "Oh boy, this panic time! Hit the panic button. We got to start throwing, 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 throwing." They didn't
Mhm.
do that. They stuck with it. They did it. They ran the ball effectively enough to where Ohio State had to respect it. And that's where you saw the play action because out of the second half gate, you saw Michigan go over the top to Colston Loveland, the freshman out of Idaho, to take the lead. And after that, Michigan never looked back. They had a good drive, a long 7.5 minute drive to start the fourth that ended with a JJ McCarthy run, which
Mhm.
to Michigan's credit, it was a outstanding second half adjustments on the offensive side of the ball where they didn't run JJ a lot. They didn't use his legs for most of this year. I think they did right away just so they had something of it on tape for defenses to prepare for, but they did a good job of not really utilizing it. And
Mhm.
then in the second half, so they weren't able to adjust. Ohio State wasn't able to adjust to it. Is that was when they really cut him loose with his legs, and he made plays. He extended some drive. He had the touchdown, and then it was the Donovan Edwards show. 75 yards and 85-yard runs in the fourth quarter to put the game away. I was jumping up and down with excitement, and watching Ohio State just melt like butter, watching that fan base on social media just melt like butter, like, oh, we got to fire Ryan Day. Oh, Jim Knowles is toast. And I also enjoy this too because last, even, yes, Michigan won last year and it was great, but all the Ohio State fans were saying, oh, it's 1 year. It was lucky.
Mhm.
You guys got to come to our house next year, and that's not going to happen. That's not going to fly. Technically, you're right. We beat your ass even worse. They bring in this D coordinator who is designed to beat Michigan. Well, Donovan Edwards is still running. Cornelius Johnson is still running. And then, you get their coaches. Oh, it's been since 2018 the last time they had to play here. Let's show them who's boss. And that crowd was hostile. Like, I was watching the Big Noon Kickoff show and game day, and they did the game or the shows inside the stadium, and like 45 minutes before the game, the stadium was completely full. Like there was not an empty seat. You could just feel the buzz, and like just sitting there waiting for that game to start. Like I was just looking at my watch, and I'm like, can this game start already? Like I'm just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. Game starts, and watching these Ohio State fans melt. And Coach Harbaugh last year was saying, some people are born on third and thought they hit a triple. They didn't. Now Ohio State fans are saying it. How funny is that? And oh, we're not. they've been talking, they've been running their mouths, all this. We're shutting them up today. No, no, you're not.
Hmm. Well, and the crazy part is not even just. Let's take these last two seasons for Ohio State in a nutshell right now. This is becoming the Ohio State shit talking hour, but it is what it is. CJ Stroud got on the mic and he goes, "My legacy is I never beat this team. I never won the big game. I have to live with that. I put up all these yards, but they're just empty wins." And he's like, "I have to live with that." And then I'm thinking this, and I'm like, "Holy shit! His best win is a Rose Bowl game against Utah, who was out their top 5 corners and had wide receivers playing in the secondary last year. Wide receivers playing in the secondary. Beating Penn State doesn't count anymore because they're the worst 9-3, 10-2 team in the country because they always get their ass kicked by Michigan, Ohio State, and they just should beat everyone else. But I'm thinking it's incredible for the amount of yards and touchdowns he's put up over these last couple of years. His legacy is going to be this. He never won a big game because they also lost at home to Oregon 2 years ago. And he lost to Michigan twice. And it's just Michigan, they did it in the most Jim Harbaugh way of all time. They don't talk. They don't do anything funny to their helmets this week of practice. They don't take out the letter O around their whole campus or anything else like that. They don't have. I don't know if Michigan has a clock where they say in 314 days we're playing Ohio State.
They
It's
they
or maybe
might have a clock. I know in their practice facility they do have a big board that says what are you doing to beat Ohio State today, and in their weight room. But other than that,
but
that's really
but
it.
but in what I'm saying is Michigan they don't make it a big deal. It's or it's a big deal, but they don't like to throw it in your face like what Ohio State does as a program, and these fans how they just want to sit back and they're almost obsessed with Michigan. It's almost unhealthy for Ohio State to be so invested on this one team. And I get it. This is the best rivalry in college football. It's one of the best rivalries in sports. I mean, for me, it's Michigan, Ohio State, it's Duke, Carolina, and then it's everything else. Because what makes these games so special, Dylan, is this: is you just have to say the two schools' names,
Yep.
and
And
people know. People know
legacies are on the line. Your jobs depend on if you beat Michigan or if you
if
beat
you're
Ohio State.
Ohio State, and
There's been plenty of coaches who have lost their jobs because they weren't able to beat the other. John Cooper won over 150 games at Ohio State. Two and he was like a 2-11 record, or there were a couple of ties in there, but he lost his job because he couldn't beat Michigan.
oh yeah, exactly. And now to your point, Ryan Day, he's in the last two regular seasons before this game on Saturday has lost one game or two games. And the only thing people can talk about, not all the 50-point games, not the record-breaking offense, Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out of nowhere, Jackson Smith and Jigba, what he did last year. All these first-round wide receivers, they talk about how his team's got his ass kicked twice against Michigan. And then you hear fans in the stadium, "We want Urban. We want Urban."
Yes, yeah. I was after the post game show of Big Noon Kickoff. It was you could hear it them chanting, "We want Urban," and then I saw scrolling Facebook yesterday. This guy from I think it was Cleveland.com talking about how they might try to go and try to talk Vrabel into going to Ohio State, pull him from the NFL.
Christ.
It's and I actually think Ryan Day is a really good coach. And the record speaks for itself. He's 45-5 in 4 seasons. I mean, he's put a bunch of guys in the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
but he is the only record that Ohio State fans seem care about is he's
One and
1-2 against Michigan,
1-2. And
and
if
he
I'm an Ohio, also Dylan, if I could just interject
yep,
real quick, I'm an Ohio State fan. Watching these Ryan Day teams, I agree with you. I think Ryan Day is a good coach, and he He's got a good offensive staff around him. He's putting guys in the NFL. But you look at this Ohio State team since he's taken over in 2019, and kind of like Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, it has steadily gotten worse and worse and worse every single year as a team. And look at that offensive line and that defensive line he had in 2019. How many NFL players were on there? J.K. Dobbins was rushing for 2,000 yards. And I get it, they had a lot of injuries this year to the running game for Ohio State, but their defense hasn't been the same over these last 2 years. And Michigan's kicked their ass. They put up 43.5 points in both games. I mean, if you average it out, it's 43.5 points. And if I'm an Ohio State fan, that's the one thing that concerns me is we're not as strong as we were in the middle with our offensive line and our defensive line with Urban as we are with Ryan Day. And what is Jim Harbaugh? What is his team? What do they always have? A great running game with a salty offensive line and a front seven that is hellacious. And if Ryan Day doesn't correct that and his coaching staff doesn't correct that, it could be a long couple of years with this rivalry game. And I'm not saying Michigan's going to go on a stretch of winning 10 in a row.
I hope
but
so.
They could, but it very well could be a 7-3, 8-2 split if Ohio State can't figure this out, which is improving this defense because it's gotten worse and worse and worse every single year. And with the way Michigan's running the ball and what they won the Joe Moore Award last year, who knows? They might win it again this year.
They should.
I mean, they're going to be up there. Georgia's got it. Georgia's got a good, good pitch for that too. But now Michigan can walk into any 17, 18-year-old house in this country and say, hey, look what we've done to this team these last 2 years. And look what we've done to every team we've played. Yeah, we're going to go here and we're not going to go over to you boys in Columbus. You can have all the receivers you want, but when we're kicking your ass and we have the possession for 35 minutes a game, we're scoring touchdowns. And when your offensive line can't block our front seven, you're not going to catch the ball, bro.
Yeah. Well, and I think Joel Klatt talked about this on his podcast today, and it's true, is that Ohio State, yeah, I mean, if you look just on paper, like what their numbers are as far as in the running game, yeah, it stacks up there because, I mean, they have some extremely talented back in Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, a couple of freshmen that look like they're going to be studs, but they don't have an identity. Where you look at Michigan's run game, it is pin and pull, A gap, it is power. They have an identity of what they want to do in the run game, where Ohio State just kind of runs plays almost. And
Yeah.
the other part too is with Michigan, their defense is they are built to beat Ohio State, where they have two standing ends. Their D tackle or their nose tackle is just an absolute animal who just eats blocks, which is basically what he has to do. He might not show it. The I can't even think of 55 Mason Graham. I want to say that's his name. Is and he's a freshman and who just a former wrestler made plays. Braden McGregor made a bunch of plays out on the edge that saved that he could have had a pick six. He knocked down a couple of passes that Ohio State tried on swing passes that could have gone for a long way. And and then their linebackers, they are very, they're almost like all hybrid positions where they can play safety, because there were a couple of times where there were some linebackers matched up on receivers and Michigan's linebackers held their own.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can't say enough about the secondary. Will Johnson did a great job on Marvin Harrison. I mean, Marvin Harrison still had 100 and some yards, but I mean, you didn't see the explosive plays that you're used to. I mean, there were a couple of plays where it was like there's nothing you can do to defend that at all. And then Mike Sanders still with the play of the game on that third down where, and I watched that play back today. The ground he covered, which also I think you can give credit to the Michigan pass rush, because Stroud had to kind of throw that off his back foot and it sailed in the air a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to, which allowed Sanders still, who was playing receiver a year ago, and is probably their best tackler out in space. I don't think I've seen him miss an open field tackle at all this year, which has given me like some Jordan Lewis vibes. And they it's just an incredible turnaround from where people wanted Harbaugh fired 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And Mason Graham, yep, freshman from California. Harbaugh referred to him as a gift from the football gods early in the year. And they he looked in the mirror, he got himself right, and you can see that this team is a reflection of Jim Harbaugh, of how nasty, much they stay in the fight. They aren't going to get scared, they're not going to get intimidated, they're not going to back down. They're going to, if you punch us, we're going to punch back. And they just kept landing punches and punches, and then able to land the knockout punches, which turned into the interceptions and then the two long runs by Edwards. And you could tell just by watching the locker room and Harbaugh after the game where he was going to get interviewed by Tom Rinaldi, and he said, "No, you don't interview me. It wasn't me that won. It was he went and grabbed JJ, and then he went and grabbed Mike Sanders still to go get interviewed because those are the guys that play." And then he runs up to the locker room and was the first one up there and went and hugged every single player. And then as the last couple got in, they carried him in, and he had his doing his fist pump. And then after, when he was doing his post game press conference, Mike Sanders still came in and said, "This guy right here." He's like, "Oh no, it's this guy." And then they hug each other, tell him they love him. And this team just they love each other. They believe in one another, and it's proven that this team, they're and just the way they carry themselves too is because after the game, JJ McCarthy was talking about how, the job's not finished. Our goals are bigger than just beating Ohio State. This was a nice win, but we're on to Purdue. And I'm just so happy. I haven't stopped
Hmm.
smiling since Saturday.
Oh, and you're probably not going to stop smiling unless something just catastrophic happens on Saturday, which we hope doesn't happen. But just like last year, dude, Michigan, they have set themselves up to get the number 2 seed in the college football playoff, and good things could come from this Michigan team. And I told you this on Saturday when we talked after the game, Dylan, but the team that Iowa wants to be is what Michigan is. The difference is this: Iowa has C plus to B minus players. Michigan has B plus to A minus players, and they have changed their philosophy on the identity that they want to have. This isn't the same Jim Harbaugh offense you saw in 2011 throughout 2013 in San Francisco. It's the same idea, but he changed his philosophy up a little bit. And, good for him for saying, hey, this is what I want to be, but I'm going to change it up to be in more with the times a little bit. And he made the tough call to go with JJ as a starting quarterback, and it panned out. It took him 11 and a half games to figure out and get a deep pass. But boy, was it a good time to figure it out on Saturday afternoon.
Yep. And I said in our show last week with Mike that this receiving core has been very underwhelming all year, and we finally got to see what they're capable of. And I think this was the right step. I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see him open it up a little bit more, and a little bit too with the kind of where the passing game was underwhelming. I think it was also because they were running the ball so effectively, they didn't have to throw. And Harbaugh is someone that's stuck in the ways that if it's working, I don't need to prove to anybody that we can throw the ball just to prove a point. If we're running the ball and we're running through guys, why stop?
I'm right there with you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yep. And so, uh, this is great. And I think, and well, you talked about with the recruits. Since Michigan has beaten Ohio State, there were 3 guys that were at the game as Ohio State official visits. Three, all, and they've all committed to Michigan since then. There was one that was on his official visit. He took a picture with the freshman corner Will Johnson, and was in the. I think he was in the locker room after the game,
Well, and
the
dude,
Michigan locker room.
what's crazy is two of those three recruits are from the state of Ohio.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's the wild part about that. But man, winning, it's one hell of a drug, isn't it?
Yep. And Harbaugh said it is. There's nothing better than singing the victors in Columbus.
Hail to the victors in Columbus.
Yep.
And actually, Dylan, as we're doing this segment right now, that old Ohio State fan with the white beard in the game, he's still saying, "I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is going on." He's still saying that right now.
What did they Joel Klatt described it as, it was like going to a funeral, the way
Yeah.
that stadium was, especially from the way that game, like I said earlier, where it was like 45 minutes before the game and the stadium was completely filled.
Well, yep. I mean, and you talk about this here in a little bit, but Ohio State, in all seriousness, might need a miracle this weekend now.
They could, yeah.
And I tell you what, they are going to be rooting hard for the Utah Utes and the Kansas State Wildcats. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Which, but yeah, and I know I was texting you on Saturday about my Ryan Day theory and this is the last, because I don't want to completely, where I'm just dumping on Ohio State. I don't like doing that. Well, I do, but I do try to celebrate Michigan's wins more than the other team losing. But
Yep.
my theory with Ryan Day is I feel, because I mean, he didn't play at Ohio State. He's not from the state of Ohio. Um, well, he was, because he was born on third base. He's he's from New Hampshire, and he
Ooh.
came there in, I believe, in 17 to Ohio State.
Was it after Herman, or after they
Yep.
fired what's his name? Ed?
Warner. Yep. And
Yeah.
it almost feels like, just by the way he talks, is he almost feels like it's like he's got a little bit of short man syndrome, where he's trying to prove that he is a Buckeye through and through, and he just overemphasizes everything, where it's like, and this is just pure speculation on my part, but maybe like that message is, it's so driven in where it's like, yes, we get it. Just, let's move on and, worry more about other things, where he just has to prove that he is this through and through Buckeye, and the only thing that matters is beating Michigan, where the message is just kind of overworn.
I don't know if that's the case or if it's just the fact that his football team got his ass kicked these last 2 years against Michigan. And he needs to, him and his coaching staff and these players, they need to figure it out. Because you look at those long 2 touchdown runs, there wasn't, on the Donovan Edwards' last 2 touchdown runs, Dylan, there wasn't anything Jim Knowles could have done schematically there. That was just Michigan blockers getting to where they need to be and opening up a hole. And Donovan Edwards hitting it and getting her into third gear, and they weren't going to catch him.
Yeah, and the other part of it too is like I'll see on like ads on Facebook or TikTok or those type of things, where like at the Big Ten media days, where they'll interview coaches, and one of the topics is say something nice about your rivals. And Harbaugh's like they said, say something nice about Ohio Stadium. He said, it's cool design, it's got a lot of history in it.
Yeah.
And um Ryan Day was like, no, doesn't even want to discuss it, where it's
So
like,
almost like a wannabe tough guy.
yes, yeah, exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. Well, he's got another 300 and
65 days.
360 days for this scar to heal, and hopefully see if he can figure it out next year.
I hope he doesn't. But
it'll be interesting, because I'm not going to talk about the speculation for this weekend's games, but if they go as how they're supposed to go, his quarterback, his wide receiver, his best Well, he hasn't played all year, but his quarterback's probably not playing in a bowl game.
No, and he kind of just said that.
Hmm.
Basically, well, he didn't, but the way he was talking was, I never beat Michigan. I never won the Big Ten. It sounds like he played his last game in a Buckeye uniform.
Like I said, unless probably just the Utah Utes pull off a huge upset.
Yeah, and we'll go over. Do you want to discuss any of the NFL games over the weekend?
The one thing that I thought was really cool, Dylan, was this. It was the Vikings Patriots game. In the first half, that third and goal play when Hawkinson scored. TJ's first touchdown here in Minnesota, he almost looked relieved or just like, hey, I finally did it. I scored here. You know what the best part about that was? When they showed the sideline celebration, when you saw KOC come over with a big old smile on his face and he hugged TJ right away. I thought that was cool. And now I understand why this Vikings team, they love their locker room so much and they love their head coach because he wants to see him succeed. And when I saw that, KOC probably went to Quessy and said, hey, we need a tight end. I don't know if he said, let's get Hawkinson, or if Quessy just put out a feeler and said, hey, we need a tight end for this team. So they went and they got Hawk, and he's played good in 3 of the 4 games. We had that drop touchdown against Dallas, and the first drive of that game. But when he got in the end zone, it was really cool to see KOC's reaction, where he felt proud of him. He said, "Hey, TJ, this monkey's kind of finally off your back. Welcome to Minnesota. You scored on Thanksgiving. You're finally having a good Thanksgiving. You haven't had one of those in your career the whole time since you've been usually losing games at 11:30 in Detroit." And I just thought that was really cool. It shows that these guys are human too, and they care. They care for their players. So good for KOC to have that big reaction. He just didn't shrug it off and say, "Oh, we're going for one here." PAT. He went out of his way, it looked like, to see Hawk and say, "Hey, congrats, bud. That's the first of many here in Minnesota."
Yeah, for sure. And it's Vikings are 9-2, and got another big one this upcoming week. But we'll go back to the college game. We'll go down to the FCS actually. We'll do a little bit of some Bison talk. They play Montana at 1:30 Mountain Time on ESPN Plus. Looks like the Bison are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Uh, I don't know a whole lot about Montana. The quarterback is pretty athletic. He's a good runner. Big thing in this game for the defense is something that they've been improved on is continue and build on it is their tackling. They've got to continue to tackle. According to my notes, it says tackle wheel, WEEL. I don't know what was.
Should that be well, my friend?
Yeah. It was supposed to be tackle well, but I did wheel. I was kind of scrambling to get these all notes together. Another thing too is they got to be on point on special teams. They got to be locked in there. Montana scored twice on special teams against Southeast Missouri State last week, which basically got them the win. They beat SEMO now 34-28 or 34-24. And then as far as the offense goes, they got to be able to continue run the ball. Montana gave up 439 yards against Montana State 2 weeks ago. You have to think the Bison are going to find ways to exploit that. Sounds like Lipke is highly doubtful, but between Tamarick Williams, Kobe Johnson, TK Marshall, I expect him to get some carries. Cole Payton, Cam Miller, those 5 guys, it's going to be just a mashing, dominate that A gap power, dominate the line of scrimmage. I think with that, I think NDSU. I think I like them, and I like them more than the 6.5. It'll be a fun game to watch. Anytime 2 national powers in the FCS get together, it's gonna promise to be a good game. It's Montana's first time these 2 teams have played since 2015 in the playoffs in the Fargo Dome, where NDSU won like 37-6, had 2 pick sixes. It was ugly game from Montana's part, where the game was over within the first quarter. They had a punt return. NDSU had a punt return for a touchdown. The Fargo Dome was rocking throughout.
Dylan, was that the same weekend? I'm going back in time here, trip down memory lane, where we went to the Vikings Seahawks game that same weekend,
Yes,
and,
yes,
and
it
we got
was. Yep.
our hearts were broke. For myself, when Iowa lost to Michigan State, and your heart broke because Michigan State won the Big Ten. Was that same weekend? If I'm
Yep.
not mistaken,
That was the same weekend. Yep.
because I remember because at the time working rental there in Fargo, good college job by the way, and a couple tailgaters they needed a tent put up. So we went and put it up in the morning before the game, and then as the game was going on, we're trying to take this tent down, um, and I'm outside of the stadium, and I can hear the Fargo Dome just exploding, and I'm thinking, how does this place have a roof? Like it was so loud. I remember just hearing it from the parking lot, thinking that these people are going crazy right now. Like they are on a mission. Um, so yeah, it just kind of came back to me. I said, you said 2015, and I was like, wait a minute. I think I remember the last time Montana came to Fargo.
Yeah, it was a raucous crowd. Usually it seems like too for the especially like recently with NDSU where there's a lot of buzz early in the year and then you get after homecoming you see attendance kind of start to dip a little bit and there's kind of a little
But
bit of that losing interest. I think partially it's because
it,
of
it also
North Dakota is a big deer hunting state.
I was
But
gonna say
then
deer.
as the playoffs start to approach senior day, and then playoffs hit, it gets that new atmosphere. You get that early Fargo Dome loud, like when we were our freshman years, your freshman year, and then my freshman year, where it was loud throughout. The stands were packed within 30 minutes before the game, and there was just you could always just feel that special buzz just going around the Fargo Dome.
Well, yeah, and I think the best playoff game, the one that I remember the most, I want to say I wasn't at Georgia Southern my freshman year because I went home for winter break, and that was a mistake. I should have stayed up. I should have stayed up for that game. But what Walford, the week before for that game was it when Grant Olson when he had like 24
30,
tackles.
34 tackles or something like that.
That,
Yeah. Or
and then
29 and a half. He
and,
broke the FCS record for tackles
and
that day.
you remember that Sam Houston game in 2014, that semifinal game. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun to be at. Like you said, when that place gets loud, when it gets going, there's not it's hard to beat for an atmosphere with what 19,000 people in the Fargo
Yep.
Dome. So that was pretty special. But you back to the game this Saturday. You said Montana blocked 2 kicks last week.
They returned. They had a punt
Or,
return and a kick return for a touchdown.
okay, because what's the stat? Like Urban Meyer says, like if you block a punt or return a kick back, you're going to win. With that, you have like an 86% chance of winning that
Yep.
game. Crazy stat like that. I mean,
Yeah,
and and
something like
and,
that.
and look at this. Look at the Vikings Patriots game this Sunday. Go back to the NFL real quick. When the Vikings brought that kickoff back, that brought the juice to that team. And, that was probably something they needed. So to your point, if the Bison want to win, and if Montana wants to try to pull off the upset, they're going to need to steal a possession or get some points on special teams.
Yep. And sounds like Eli Mostert, the D line, All American D lineman for the Bison. Sounds like he is running at practice. He's not doing any contact yet, but that's got to be some good news because he would be a nice added addition as they're looking to make a deeper run, be a nice person to add. Sounds like hopefully maybe within a couple of weeks, if not this week, maybe next week or the semifinal round or Frisco. But yeah, it's exciting. South Dakota State plays Delaware. Montana State plays Weber State, who beat UND, and it it's gonna be some. There's gonna be some good games.
So
I'm
if
excited.
if chalk prevails, we'll have what NDSU, Sacramento State, and South Dakota State, Montana State semifinals.
Yep, yep,
You know, for the FCS, that's as good as you're going to get.
yeah. I would agree with you. That bracket. The only team it sounds like that's really in Sacramento State's bracket portion of it that could possibly pull an upset would be Incarnate Word, which if they did, that means the
It
semifinal would be
would be in
back
the
in the
Fargo.
Fargo Dome. But we'll see what happens, and we'll go back up to the FCS, and we'll
FBS.
start or FBS. Yeah, I did say FCS. Yes, we're going back up to the FBS here. It's a good thing I got Grant there, who can correct me on my mistakes, keep me on the righteous, straight and narrow path. We'll start in the game that is Friday, the Pac-12 championship, USC Utah, 6 p.m. Friday on
Fox,
AB,
I believe.
I believe it
Is it?
ABC or
I think
ESPN.
you're right. I think I was wrong.
It used to always be that Friday on
Yeah, on
Fox,
Fox. Yeah.
uh, but USC is looking to avenge their only loss from the season, which was a 43-42 loss on a 2-point play in Salt Lake City.
Stand up, Cam Rising.
Yep. And USC right now. Oh no. Okay, yeah, I do have them as a 3-point favorite. It is on Fox. Yep, it's 6 p.m.
Oh,
on
okay.
Fox. So there you go.
Did you say that right? USC is only a 3-point favorite.
Yep. And
Okay.
that game is
Okay.
in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. And right now, Caleb Williams is the go-ahead, by far and away favorite to
For
win the
that,
Heisman. I think he's going to need another Heisman performance. The defense, they've got their stud back who played last week against Notre Dame, and they seem to be playing better. When USC is going to have to force some turnovers in this game, and I think they've been running the ball a little bit better too. Even after Travis Dye has gone out, I feel like they've been a little bit better running the ball. They were really good. Caleb Williams running the ball. It seems to be they've taken the reins off him and cut him loose more in the run game. He definitely ran all over the Notre Dame defense on Saturday.
three
And
touchdowns
and
on the
if
Caleb.
USC wants to get a spot in that playoff, they win and they're in. I think.
I would agree. I mean, if you look at winning, they're in. Wins against Utah, Notre Dame, Oregon State's looking like a good win now, right there in the college football playoff rankings, and UCLA. But the one thing, if I'm Utah, and I want to win this game, Dylan, you need to keep Caleb Williams in the pocket, because when he goes off script and he goes Mahomes, it's magic time. I mean, he's either going to run 30 yards backwards and get back to line of scrimmage and have a crazy completion, or he's going to scramble and he's going to take off and he's going to make plays with his legs. So Utah has to keep him in the well, because if they don't, you're in trouble with that. But then also, can USC's defense, can they make Utah kick field goals and maybe force an early punt or two? Because Utah's offense is feeling good. They're flying high. I know they lost 2 weeks ago to Oregon, putting up 60 points against Colorado last weekend. And even the weeks before that, this Utah offense feels like they got it figured out. So can USC's defense, continue to play well like they did last week against Notre Dame and get after Cam Rising and, maybe cause an interception or two, or, a couple early punts? Because if they can't, it could be a 4.5 hour game in Las Vegas, because these teams are going to score.
Yep.
Like you said, they scored 85 points when they played in Salt Lake City. They might put up another 85 points, Friday night in Las Vegas. But Utah, you got to keep Caleb Williams inside that pocket. And for USC's defense, when Utah has lost this year, Cam Rising has had some bad interceptions. And you need to make them kick field goals in the red zone and not touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, and that's been one of USC's calling card on defense, because they give up a lot of yards, but they've been able to force turnovers, which has kind of negated
Yeah.
that. And if they're able to do that, you have to like USC's chances. Do you remember who you had in the Pac-12 championship at the start of the year?
I did. I got one of the two teams correct. I
Okay.
said Utah, Oregon,
Okay.
with the Utes winning the conference.
Yep. You and me both, actually.
And I think Ethan did too. I think we were a clean
Yeah.
sweep on Utah.
Yep. Well, Ethan had Utah winning it all.
He did.
And
He's good for that.
yep. And yeah, then so we'll see 6 p.m. Friday. And then we'll go to the I guess we'll just go in order of the time the games are played. It's Big 12 championship, 10 a.m. on ABC. TCU versus Kansas State. Chris
Like
Kleiman in his fourth
like
year.
like everyone predicted at the beginning of the year.
Yep. In his fourth year at the Wildcats, has the Wildcats playing for a Big 12 championship. He's looking to avenge a loss where they were up 27-10 and I believe 17-0
They were 17-0.
at one point in that game. A good matchup. I think TCU also playing win and in. I also found this out today too. That did you know that Sean Payton's son goes to TCU and is a student assistant?
I just figured that out. I did not know that.
Yep, he was on the herd today, and he was saying that.
Oh, interesting.
Uh-huh. And I can't remember who, but I'll let you go with the preview here while I look up and see who I had in the previous.
Yeah, so I think the big thing with Kansas State this year is they need to not only possess the ball, Dylan, but they need to score touchdowns because this TCU offense with Sonny Dykes at the coach, Sonny Dykes as your head coach, and then Lincoln Riley's younger brother as your offensive coordinator. It was Max Dungan? Is that his name? The quarterback for TCU. Dugan. They can score points fast. So Kansas State, like what they did last time, you need to get a healthy dose of Deuce Vaughn, but you need to score touchdowns. And then when Kansas State, when their defense is on the field, you need to get stops on first and second down because as soon as TCU gets that one first down, they're going fast. And then when they're going fast, they're not substituting. The Wildcats are going to have the same cats, no pun very much intended there on the field. They're going to get tired. They're playing indoors in Dallas. It's a home game on that turf, fast conditions for TCU. So Kansas State needs to win on first and second down and then make sure TCU can't get a couple of first downs and they really get that speed going on offense. And then also, when you're playing TCU, you're playing a 60-minute football game. These guys, they've been down in 8 of their 12 wins this year. It's a staggering number how many come from behind wins they've had in the second half. And you saw that Baylor game, no timeouts, 15 seconds left on the clock. Run that field goal unit out there and line up and kick a field goal to win the game. Can Kansas State, can they win this game? Absolutely. But they're gonna have an uphill battle because, like I said, TCU, they're playing a home game, and for an opportunity at their first spot in the college football playoff, that's a big deal, especially in that state when you're kind of the third or fourth, fifth school. You're the fourth or fifth school for college football, and to possibly be the first team from Texas in the college football playoff, that's incredible.
Yeah. Now that you
So
said that.
you wouldn't think of it. You'd think A&M or Texas would have one at this point for sure. Baylor came close last year. Yeah, I think they were the 5 or 6. But Kansas State, like I said, they need to run the ball, but they need to score touchdowns.
Yes. And for me, I had Oklahoma Baylor and Oklahoma winning the Big 12 championship. That
Yep.
one worked out well. I think both
I'm
are 6-6.
Yes, and I was with you. I had Baylor playing Oklahoma State, which was also a pick because Oklahoma State 7-5, and I had the Baylor Bears. Wait for it in the college football playoff too. So Ethan and I's kind of wild card pick for the year didn't pan out, but we at least got the conference right. We thought a wild card pick would come from just the wrong school in Texas.
Yeah. And that was I agree with you. I would like to see Chris Kleiman get a Big 12 championship, but I also would like to see TCU win because I don't really want Ohio State in the playoff.
I'm with you.
But keep things moving here. We'll go over to the SEC. Georgia versus LSU in the Mercedes-Benz Dome or Stadium.
Mercedes Stadium. Yep,
Yeah,
stadium. The
2
dome is now
p.m.
loaded.
2 p.m. on CBS. I had Georgia, Alabama as my predictions to start the year. I think you did as well, as did Ethan.
Sure did.
This LSU coming off a loss might have been looking ahead a little bit after losing to A&M. Georgia's got to take care of business, run through them. I know LSU is a team that likes, they got to make sure on Georgia's end they got to shore up the edges. Georgia or LSU is a team that likes to get out on the edge, kind of showcase their speed, which Georgia has done a really good job of their lateral sideline to sideline. The way they're able to cover, I think this could be a bad matchup for LSU, and I don't think Brian Kelly quite has the horses yet to make this game competitive. And this is that's a little bit of a sign of a young, immature team. They had the East
The West.
West clinched, and then they go absolutely lay an egg against Texas A&M and lose. And I figured out too. I think if Georgia loses to LSU, who just lost to Texas A&M last week, I'm sorry, but the SEC shouldn't get a team in. I don't care that they're the best conference, but if you're Georgia and you lose to a team that lost to a lifeless Texas A&M team who has players tweeting that the only reason they went to Texas A&M is because they got the bag,
Whoa,
you don't
wait a
deserve to
minute.
be in.
You mean Grant was right when he said in May that this recruiting class was phony and they only went there because they got the bag? You're kidding.
No, I
Oh,
know.
wow. Who would have
Where
saw that coming?
Chalk
Oh,
one up
wait.
for where Grant was right.
Yeah, where Grant was right. We've been right a few times so
We
far this
have.
year, Joe. And you're feeling good about that. If I'm a LSU dude, what scares me is how I let Texas A&M run all over me last year with a running back for Texas A&M who was injured and did his best to even get on the field, and you made him look like an all SEC running back. What's the number one or a top 5 rushing team in Georgia going to do this year against you in a home game, an hour away from their campus? And then also, you're telling me Kirby Smart? I know Orgeron's not there. Chase, Burrow, Jefferson, Thaddeus Moss, Grant Delpit, Patrick Queen. But the last time Georgia was in this SEC title game and they played LSU, they got embarrassed 37-19.
And it wasn't that close either.
It wasn't that close either. And you know what? Last year, Kirby Smart, they blew an opportunity at a perfect season because they walked into an SEC title game thinking this, if we lose, that's okay. We're still in. We still have a shot at what we want. No, their mission this year was to go a perfect 15-0, and it started week 1 against Oregon. Went throughout the whole year. They hit a little lull where they barely beat the Missouri Tigers 26-22 there in October, but then what they did to Tennessee, 3-4 weeks ago. This Bulldogs team is on a mission, and I don't really see this game being close. I think Georgia is going to win by, wait for it, 3 touchdowns. And it's going to be like a 42-14 type game. They're just better. LSU, they're going to be happy they won the West title. That Brian Kelly did a lot in year 1 when after that Florida State game, you thought there's no way they're going to win 5 games this year. But
Which is actually looking like a pretty good loss because I think
which
Norvell
is
finally's
like a
got
good
some
loss.
things clicking there.
Yeah. Because what the Seminoles, they finished 9-3 on the year?
Something
And
like that, yeah.
I think their last loss was to Clemson in mid-October.
Yep.
But yeah, Georgia should just show up, dominate, go home, be the number 1 team in the college football playoff, and then know after they win that game, they'll be like, well, with USC playing on Friday, we're either playing USC or Ohio State, so let's go.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, I was with you. I also, in the start of the year, had Alabama, Georgia, in the SEC title game.
Yeah, I don't see this game being close. I think Kirby Smart is going to have those guys ready to play. That is a veteran group down in Athens. returning national champions. They seem to shook off that little bit of that hangover they had, that midseason lull that you see a lot of teams that are coming off a national championship face. They're rolling and they're focused. They know what's at stake. Win, we get the 1 seed. We're playing, we'll be playing either USC or TCU if it goes by chalk. And then we'll go down to the ACC. I guess we can stay on the East Coast, the ACC. Clemson UNC. This is a game for a spot in the Orange Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, I had Clemson Miami. Miami is not going to be even making a bowl game, and UNC is coming off a loss. Clemson is also coming off a loss, and this game is at 6 Mountain Time on ABC
Yeah.
again, which is going to be at the same time as the Big Ten championship game. So nobody's going to be watching it. The game doesn't really mean anything, but I think I like Clemson. I think there's just a little bit too much talent on that roster for UNC to overcome. And this game might come down to special teams, and I trust Clemson's kicker more than I trust the UNC kicker.
Ooh, especially after last week.
Yep. And what is probably could be potentially one of DJ Uyunglele's last game in a Clemson uniform. I could see him transferring. I'm actually surprised that Dabo has stuck with him as long as he has, because
I would have thought after the Notre Dame game, put Cade in.
yeah, and Cade's a stud.
He's a stud.
Cade is that dude.
And Dabo did this in 2018 when they were still undefeated. Why am I drawing a blank on the former quarter?
Kelly Bryant.
Kelly Bryant. Yep. Kelly Bryant they lost to Syracuse in 17, but they were 11-1 that year. They were the number 1 seed going into the playoff. They're undefeated going in that 2018 season, and he said, I needed a change. This offense needed a spark. We're going to put the 5-star freshman Trevor Lawrence in. They went on to go undefeated to win the national title and beat Alabama's ass in the title game. I don't know why he didn't go to Cade this year after that Notre Dame game, because at that point they still had an opportunity to sneak in the playoff as a 4 seed. But Dylan, how does DJ go 9 of 28 last week for 99 yards and still have a job? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, that's worse than Spencer Petras. And considering how much talent he has, and I get it, Clemson's wide receivers and their running game's not the same as what it was these last couple of years, which isn't fair because that was the elite of the elite.
And they still have a good running back in Will Shipley.
Yep.
Clemson, which they I think they try to be a pass first team when they really should be a run first team.
Should be run first team.
Especially with a guy like Shipley, where you can use play action and use DJ's legs, which he has proven that's kind of where you see him at his best. He's not meant to be a drop back passer. You need him out on sprint outs or roll outs, play action.
Like when Caleb Williams, when the play breaks down, let him go be an athlete. But so yeah, I agree with you. I think DJ is going to transfer after this year because it's Cade's starting job, and if that's not the case, I could see Cade transferring. Couldn't you? In today's world of college football, he'll sit back and he'll say, Oklahoma needs a quarterback, Miami needs a quarterback. There's a plus.
Could potentially need a quarterback.
You're telling me they wouldn't want the number 1 quarterback in his class? From Texas. He was the only number 1 because Quinn Ewers reclassified, but still, Cade is a dude. And when he's played this year, he's played well. But to kind of brag and feel good about myself, I did pick UNC at the beginning of this year.
Okay.
And full intent was not because I knew their defense was anything. I knew their defense was going to be awful. I just really trusted this Carolina offense to score more points than everyone else. And they did that. Drake May, he's got to be one of the more underappreciated superstars in the college football season this year. I think more passing yards than CJ Stroud. He used to have the most touchdowns accounted for, but I think Caleb Williams might have something to say about that now. He's having a great year. And this Carolina offense can score a lot of points. Whew, but this Carolina defense is bad, and they give up a lot of points too. I mean, last week to their hated rivals, North Carolina State, the third string redshirt freshman quarterback comes in and plays like an All American.
Yeah.
And
Well, and Drake May, he's also the leading rusher on the team this year too. He's got
yep,
620, 630 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3,800. He'll eclipse the 4,000 passing yards in this game. Uh, 35 touchdowns, 5 interceptions.
mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize this until like a couple of weeks ago that his older brother is Luke May.
There's Luke May, yeah. And I guess also, Alec was telling me uh, their oldest brother of the family was a college pitcher at the University of Florida, and
Okay.
he won a College World Series with the Gators.
Oh wow, that's
And
pretty good genes.
and I think mom and dad were college athletes at Carolina too, so he's got the genetics on his side. But back to the game here, I'm with you. I like Clemson more in this game, just because I trust their defense to make more plays and get after Drake May than what I think this Carolina defense will do to this Clemson offense. This front four for Clemson will be able to get after May consistently, make him feel the pressure, and make a couple mistakes like he did last week, and that'll be enough to get the Tigers to play in the Orange Bowl. And who knows, maybe we'll get Clemson, Alabama in the Orange Bowl this year. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have, would it?
No, no, not at all. The total is 63.5. I kind of like that over there.
I like the over too, because I think the winning team might have 35 40 points in this game.
I also don't know how much I can trust the Clemson defense that gave up 31 points to Spencer Rattler.
Well, on
So
that last touchdown, when they decided to just not cover the guy,
yeah,
he just decided to fall down at midfield and let him score.
and I didn't really get to watch I didn't watch a single play of that game, but I know Spencer Rattler's the quarterback for South Carolina. Scored 31 points.
Well, and then also,
Uh,
since this game really doesn't matter for either one of these teams, are these defenses going to be interested in playing?
well, we know Carolina's defense hasn't been interested in playing
And
all year.
playing all year. So, but with that, I like the Tigers. My prediction from August holds true. And I also said they wouldn't make the college football playoff. So at least I got one right. I got
There
one
you
conference.
go. There you go. All right, and then we'll go to the Big Ten championship. That game's going to be in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium, where as we record this, the Steelers are beating the Colts 16-10 in the third quarter here. It is Michigan, Purdue. Michigan's looking to go back to back in the Big Ten championship. There's 16.5-point favorites. I had Michigan, Minnesota this year playing in the matchup. Grant had Ohio State, Iowa wrong. And
Son of a gun to get screwed on the last week of the year. What a shame.
yeah.
And same with my Oregon pick in the
Yep.
Pac-12. We all got screwed the last week of the year.
You were looking pretty good about at halftime of that Oregon State game.
No kidding. I mean, because I remembered all our picks, and I'm thinking, damn, I might. Well, I think we all had Oregon, Utah.
Yeah.
But still, the fact that the one that I got Carolina, I was thinking, all right, I might be able to get two of these things right. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And then the second half of that game happened.
Yep. And well, preview this game. Michigan, it's important. They don't have a letdown. They don't have a hangover. Take care of business. Jump on them right away. I think this team has the right attitude. It is business as usual. They said they don't. They're already. They enjoyed the win on Saturday, but Sunday they were all about Purdue. That's the right attitude to have, because I think right now their goals, as it should be, is winning a national title, and to even get a spot or a shot to play in the national title, you got to beat Purdue. You got to take care of business. They're 16.5-point favorites. 6 p.m. on Fox. We got Gus and Joel calling the game, and for Michigan, I think it's pretty simple. It's force AOC not the AOC you guys are thinking of. It is Aiden O'Connell, AOC. Something that he has been known to do, force him into some interceptions. His secondary is playing well. Uh, it's going to be another tough test. Charlie Jones is Purdue's best receiver. I would expect a bracket over him, have a safety over the top of him to limit those explosive plays. Uh, get that pass rush going, keep teeing off on there. Uh, that's probably the biggest thing. And then offensively is sustain drives, getting the finish every possession with a kick, and get out of there healthy, and build off what you had going in the past game. I would expect them to open it up a little bit more with JJ and that receiving core, and see if we can see that potential that we thought Michigan was going to have going into the year.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Dylan. And also, if you're Michigan's sake, you want to have Blake Corum in this game, of course you do, but maybe you don't play him because if you remember, in early November when Iowa played Purdue, Caleb Johnson had over 200 yards. So this should be hopefully another game for Michigan here, where the offensive line and Donovan Edwards, and if you choose to run JJ a little more, put a little more of his running attack on the tape for your bowl opponent to see and try to study. But if you can just keep to do what you do best, dominating the line of scrimmage, you're rushing for over 200 yards. And then when you do that, you're going to force Aiden O'Connell, AOC, as you like to call him, into mistakes. And just like that Iowa game this year for Purdue, he threw 2 interceptions that led to touchdowns. And then also come in with the same mindset this team had last year when they played Iowa. No letdown against Ohio State. Business. We're focused. We're going to come in. We want to dominate. And then also, to your point, make Purdue throw the ball to someone else besides Charlie Jones. Because if him and O'Connell get something going where they have a little chemistry, it could, scare you a little bit, or think, oh, this game should be is a little closer than what it should be. Make O'Connell feel uncomfortable and throw to someone he doesn't trust to. And, good things will happen for Michigan. This pass rush can tee off because they know Purdue has to throw. And then hopefully you can sit comfortable and be the 2 seed, come playoff time.
Yep. Yeah, I expect them to run the ball. I don't think Corum is going to play. Hopefully get him rested. Hopefully there's a shot if they're able to win and make it to the playoff, hopefully he's going to be able to play, which is really unfortunate for Blake, because I think if he would have been able to play last week, probably would have had a big game and would have been probably the favorite with Caleb Williams to win the Heisman.
Heisman Trophy. Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Hopefully he'll still at least get an invite to New York. But yeah, I think even if this game's in hand, get Edwards out of there. Trust Isaiah Gash, CJ Stokes.
Yep.
And get out of there healthy. But I'm with you. Maybe run JJ a little bit more.
Just get a little something on tape, because let's play the game like we've been saying all day. It's a hypothetical game. If chalk holds up, you're playing the Horned Frogs. They're undefeated. Make that TCU defense sit back and for a month think, damn, how are we going to stop this quarterback from running the ball? That's just another added thing that this Horned Frogs defensive coaching staff is going to have to sit back and say, how can we stop those guys?
Yeah. But you got to beat Purdue. And I think we just laid out everything that they got to do to get the win. And hopefully it plays out that way. I am excited. I'm not a fan of the night game. I prefer they would just play it early, get the game over with. But you know what? When you're playing for a championship, the lights come on, go win it. Don't leave any doubt. And you're holding up a Big Ten championship for the second straight year.
Yep.
So we can. Do you want to discuss any NFL games? I know the Chiefs Bengals one is probably the game of the week, which is a rematch of the AFC Championship game. and it's
Well,
the
and
CBS game of the week.
yeah, yeah, and then Philadelphia, Tennessee. That's kind of a big game noon there on Fox, and then also low key a good game that no one's talking about. Um, but 3:05 Central time, Miami goes to San Francisco.
Yes. Well,
You know,
yeah, a rematch of the or a little bit of a battle between two former coaches as
yep,
Mike McDaniel returns to San Francisco where he was the OC last year.
yep, exactly, and a little bad blood potentially from Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert this week, talking about how we have a quarterback now who can finally sling it, and we have so much talent here on the offensive side of the ball there in Miami, and this is going to be a good test for this Dolphins team to figure out if they're legit or not. Like you're playing a real team in San Francisco, in Santa Clara, against the hottest defense in the NFL. In Week 7, the Chiefs had this opportunity to go up against this Niners defense, and they put up 44 points and over 500 yards of offense. Can the Dolphins, officially say, "Hey, we're in December, and don't take us for granted. Let's like don't sleep on us right now." So I'm intrigued for that one, and then Dylan, like you said, for this Chiefs game, this is a big game for them because there's a little something going with this Bengals team. Do they have the Chiefs number? If the Chiefs get a 10, 14-point lead in this game, is there going to be a moment where they sit back and say, "Oh boy, here we go again"? Because in the regular season last year, they were up in that game 14-rip, then they were up 28-14. In the conference title game, they're up 21-3, 21-10 at halftime, and the Bengals, they just kept clawing and fighting, scratching their way back. And then also you look at this Chiefs schedule after this Bengals game. You look at it, there should be a lot of wins. You got Denver, who's riding off the side of the cliff.
I'm surprised
And
Hackett still has a job today.
I am too. I mean, unless these owners just want a clean slate and they're going to fire everyone at the end of the year and they don't want to give anyone a shot. You got 2 games against Denver, Houston, Seattle, and Las Vegas. I know it sounds like a lot of win for this Chiefs team, but they got to take care of business Sunday on the road in Cincinnati. The Bengals are getting Jamar Chase back. Um, this young, inexperienced Chiefs secondary, this is going to be a tall task for them. Spags, he's playing a lot of man coverage this year. Can they hold up against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase coming back from injury? And then can this Chiefs offense continue to just roll? I mean, putting up 400 yards these last couple of games. Can they do it against a Bengals team who adjusted well in the second half in both meetings last year? So, it should be a good game. It's going to come down to the wire, and I'm excited for it on Sunday.
Yeah, well, and the other part too is how good is we're gonna find out how good this Bengals offensive line is against the Chiefs pass rush that really seems to be finding a groove
Mm-hmm.
as of late. And also Patrick Mahomes' undefeated record in November and December is going to be put to a test.
Put on the test, and also to your point, this Chiefs pass rush, they played good on Sunday, but Bryce Perkins, he didn't have much of a chance in the passing game. We're not going to deny that, but that young man had some impressive legs on him, and he got out of a lot of bad situations. Could Burrow get out of those situations on Sunday? And last year, the Chiefs had plenty of opportunities to get to him in the second half in that AFC title game, but they didn't rush with contain, and they let Burrow make some plays with his legs. I mean, Chris Jones is getting home. Karlaftis had his sack on Sunday. Frank Clark had a lot of good rushes. He was bringing pressure. Carlos Dunlap deflected another pass. Mike Dana's having a couple sacks these last couple of weeks. Willie Gay is a blitzing linebacker. L'Jarius Sneed. Can they get to Burrow? And if they can, and he can't get those deep shots, the Chiefs have a great shot at winning. So this will be probably the last tough challenge of the year for this Chiefs defense, because Week 18 against the Raiders, I don't know what it'll be. They could have the 1 seed wrapped up and their starters don't play, or they might have to get a win to get home field. We'll see.
Yeah, and we'll try to discuss a little bit more NFL talk next week on the show. But this week was this week had to be a college football show with it being rivalry week, conference championships coming up. So we'll try to talk a little bit more NFL next week. But we've got one thing left to do to discuss before we put a bow on this show. So we're gonna kick it over to Grant, and it is fitting since it is the fifth episode 53, the Grant Caster episode. He has curveball of the week.
Well, thank you, sir. But honorable mention for episode number 53, if I could, for myself. This would also be the Navarro Bowman episode.
I knew you were gonna go there.
I absolutely love that guy. He was probably one of my favorite linebackers when he played in the league, and it's such a shame that his career ended the way it did in that NFC title game, taking that helmet to the knee. God, it sucks. Because Dylan, as you would know, defensive linemen and linebackers are my favorite players in the field to watch. And boy, that dude was hell on wheels on that football field. So special shout out to Navarro Bowman, episode 53. But to what I'm here for, curveball. And it got me thinking. Dylan, you asked one a couple weeks ago, maybe even a couple months ago. What's your guilty pleasure of a song or an artist you like to listen to? Well, how about this week? What is your television show, your TV show, where it's kind of your guilty pleasure? Like when you tell people, "Hey, I started watching this," they're gonna look at you funny, like, "What's wrong with this guy?" Or you tell them, "Hey, I've been kind of watching this," and that is something that doesn't match your personality, and people are so shocked to their core that you actually watch this. So what? It's like a guilty pleasure television series and or show.
I don't know if I would classify it as a guilty pleasure show, but I guess you could say it's a bit of a fallback show it's always good to go back and watch, and it's still funny every time you see it. Like it's a show that I've seen count like on a conservative level 7 or 8 times all the way through.
Hmm.
Well, I guess it'd probably be two. It would be one would be Trailer Park Boys.
Okay.
Incredible, just the one-liners, just absolutely just characters with Ricky, Julian, Bubbles, Leahy, Randy walking around with no shirt.
Yep.
Just it's just a funny show, and every time I'll start it, I'll just get bored one day and I'll start watching episode one, and then next thing I know, like 2 weeks later, I'm on season 7, getting ready to finish the finale of it. 'Cause
Hmm.
it's just always so everything about it, just the Rickyisms, worst case Ontario,
Yep.
all of those different sayings, and then the other one is probably yours. Would be one of yours as well. Would be the league.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yep, and just the one-liners, the jokes, the pranks, the with
The petty.
the pettiness, Ruxin's pettiness, and his conspiracy theories, I guess, of sorts, if you will, of all the things that he thinks going on that
I mean,
everyone's
yeah,
colluding against him.
the collusion that's going on, the nonsense that Taco brings into each episode.
The EBDB and B, the three penis wine.
Yep. Or the porno with Seth Rogen and Rafi.
Yes, yes. I mean, Rafi's a character in himself, and
Oh my God, yeah.
that's exactly how I got hooked on the show, is because you told me to go watch Rafi from the league on YouTube, and I was watching it before class one day in college, and I'm sitting there just laughing hysterically, and this person next to me is just sitting there like, "What are you like?" Looked at me like I was crazy, and I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, but this is too funny." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Then what do you know? Go home that night and start it."
Hmm.
And then yeah, now I've seen it probably 8 to 10 times. I haven't watched it lately. Recently, I've just seen it pop up on TikTok a couple of times in the or reels in Instagram. But
And with fail, whenever you find one, you send it to me, and God bless you for
yep.
that. It-
uh, oh, I might. Who knows? Maybe tonight when we're done recording, I might go and watch this. Go and watch a couple of episodes.
yeah, there you go. Because I remember when season 7 came out, we weren't able to catch it live because we were still in school, but it came out on Netflix, and I'm pretty sure I watched all like 13 episodes in one day.
Yes, me too.
I binged the whole thing. I was like, all right, well, I'm watching this.
Oh yeah.
hmm but yeah. So to the person with the root of the question here, the reason I thought this was such an appropriate question is because my answer here is just so ridiculous and it's so not Grant that you're gonna just absolutely you're gonna just fall to the floor when you hear this. But so it's kind of a little story time here. So it's like 2017 or 2018. I'm living with Alec and we're at the apartment at this time. And I come home and he's laying on the couch and he's watching this TV show. And I'm like, dude, what are you watching? Are you watching reruns of The Hills? Like it was something on MTV and it didn't look good. And he was like, well, I don't know. It's just kind of something I found on the TV. It's these people who live in Florida in this nice community, and it's kind of a reality show. And I'm like, weird. But since we live in it was a 2-bedroom apartment with a small living room, I didn't want to be that guy who went to his room and turned Netflix on. So I was like, so I'll give it a shot. And then it's called Siesta Key because it's by Siesta Beach there in Sarasota. And then as I'm just keep watching this, I'm thinking, these are the worst people in America. I mean, they bicker like high school students. They clearly don't like each other. And it's just trash reality TV, but it's taped and it's real life. And here we are like 5 years later, and guess what? A new season has come out. And guess what? Alec and I have on our DVR every single week.
Siesta Key.
Just so to Siesta Key. it's it's one of those where it's like these people, they're truly awful people. And you would not want to be with them. But some of the stuff they just get into and the arguments they have and how petty they are and the things they'll do to be on TV, it's kind of comical to watch. It almost makes you feel good about yourself where it's like, you know what, could you imagine how bad my life would be if I was on TV and how much I'd hate myself?
You definitely seem like a guy that would fit in
hmm
reality TV, Grant. That's
Um,
definitely when I first met you, I'm like, this is a guy that's a reality TV star in the making.
and it's kind of funny though is over these years, Caleb and Courtney, two of my good friends, Courtney, she loved it because she's a white woman and anything on TV white women love. He can't stand the show. So to get on Caleb's nerve, whenever I'd go over there to meet up with him. We just got to talk about the latest episode with Courtney. So Caleb has to sit back and listen to us talk
Ah,
about this.
I love it. That's hilarious.
He just gets so upset. And then after a while, he kind of starts thinking he's not talking as much smack about it anymore. So, it's kind of funny. But, one of those shows where you say, "Ooh, Grant, he's not going to watch that." But sure shit, every single week he's got it on his DVR and he's got to catch up and see all the drama that's going on there in Southern Florida.
All right, well, there you go. It's Grant is a Siesta Key fan. I'm a league and trailer park boy since I don't really have I guess a guilty pleasure. I'm pretty straight cut there on my TV shows, but that'll put a bow on this week's episode. Thank you guys for listening. Check us out on all of our social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, 3G TB Podcast, and then check out our Facebook page, the Three Guys Talking Ball Facebook page. We'll be posting some content there. The segment cut ups of the show is going to be posted on Friday, so if you only want to see certain parts of the show, just go to our YouTube. Make sure you subscribe there. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.